Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and, as John Campea once called me, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am here with another John Campea Show companion video. Once again, John has asked me to come and fill in and answer some questions from y'all out there, our great readers. We very much appreciate it. We thank you for the support you give the channel. Your loyal viewership means the world to us, and I'll try not to mess this up. Anyway, I want to thank John for letting me do this because you know I have a ball. And our first viewer, let me see if I can get this right. Aditya Ravishankar. What a cool name. Been watching since the AMC days. I love watching you whenever I have time. The first episode I watched was Marvel Announcement Day for Phase 3 with John, Harloff, Ellis, and Schnepp. Oh. Is Monica Spectrum Photon? I think so. I think she absolutely is. I don't know if they're going to call her Captain Marvel the way she was in the 80s. Monica Rambeau was, of course, Captain Marvel long before Carol Danvers was. I'm not sure if they're going to do that, though. They might. I think she's going to be Photon or Spectrum. Aditya Ravishankar sends in another super chat. Also, there are two scenes from the trailer we haven't seen. Wanda and Vision saving their home Westview, saying, "Let's fight for it." And the Mind Stone separated from Vision. Again, think that will be episode 8. Well, it could be episode 8. It sounds like it's teeing up whatever the final confrontation is. So I think it's probably a good bet. Aditya Ravishankar sends in another super chat and says, or asks, so do you think Paul Bettany saying a famous actor he always wanted to work with and the Skywalker level cameo is the same person? Could they be two different people? I think they could be two different people. I think that the actor that Bettany wanted to always work with is probably somebody that has yet to be in the MCU. I would assume so. And maybe there's two different cameos. Look, there's 2 more episodes to go down, and I expect to see the same thing that happened when Doc Brown's DeLorean finally hit 88 miles an hour. Serious shit. We'll see. I don't know yet. But listen, thank you so much for generously supporting the channel that way. Obi-Wan Kenobi sends in a super chat and says, it's the Smurfs. Agatha is Gargamel, and the bunny is the cat. She also created Evan Peters, like the Smurfs. Haha. Hey, you know what? I wouldn't, Obi-Wan, I wouldn't put it past him. It's crazy out there. Jacob Silver sends in a super chat and says, a little disappointed we didn't find out who the engineer is, but the ending made up for it. I think we might. I think it's still coming. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes on to say, Monica going through the barrier reminded me of Fantastic Four. It was a little cool. I liked it. You never know. Who knows what's happening on this show, but I thought it was really cool. I like the way they did it. John Dorsey sends in a super chat and says, could Mojo be involved in the manipulation of Wanda? Could he be behind the television trap? Maybe Westview is the nexus of realities. Well, I think the nexus of realities and a nexus being is definitely coming into play here. I don't know if it's Mojo. I think that would be a little difficult to explain. I don't think they would introduce Mojo without first introducing the X-Men. But what do I know? It's a crazy, crazy show. Josh Katz Curtis sends in a super chat and says, hi, John. So can we call Evan Peters Ralph now? He's definitely not Mephisto or Pietro. Also, that aerospace engineer was nothing, laugh out loud. I don't know if we've seen the aerospace engineer. Maybe we haven't. I don't know. Maybe we were all misconstruing it for something that it wasn't. I don't know. Michael Joyce sends in a super chat and says, so I saw The Little Things. The reviews, including yours, were totally true. The movie was very bad pacing. I was really disappointed in The Little Things, especially because, the script was written in the early 90s. It was supposed to be made back then. And since then, we've had so many really interesting serial killer films, whether it's Seven, whether it's the Alex Cross adaptations, Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider, Denzel's own The Bone Collector. There's been so many things that have come out. This seemed just a little disappointing. And I am with you there, sir. Jason A. sends in a super chat and says, everyone involved seemed like they were having so much fun making this show. I think it makes a difference. Catherine Hahn was next level fun factor, though. I mean, and her own song that she sings, my God, amazing. I thought it was amazing. I just hope it really sticks the landing. I really want to see this show just come out where you're shaking your head going, man, that was awesome. And apparently it was Kevin Feige's own idea. So I really want it to stick the landing. And yes, you can tell everyone's having a very good time. Andrew Myrick sends in a super chat and says, hey, John, finally able to message in. Love your show. What if Hayward is a Skrull and that's why he hates Captain Marvel and Monica? Could be, but I would think the Skrulls would like Captain Marvel. But one never knows. Could be a Skrull. They are setting up the secret invasion. Cisco H sends in a super chat and says, reports are coming out of a Colombian actress cast as Supergirl for the Flash film. Can anyone confirm if this is real? Well, Cisco H, I forget her name, but yes, it is indeed real. It is happening. And I'm here for it. I'd love to see an olive-skinned or a darker-skinned Supergirl with black hair. I think that'd be awesome. Why not? Bring it on. I'm tired of blondes. Chris Lambert sends in a super chat and says, I still think it's Fox's Quicksilver. Vision is alive and Wanda is the hero of the story. I know there's a lot of evidence against it. It seems that way, but again, how do you explain Evan Peters? They've got to explain it, Chris. I don't know how. They've got to explain that to me. I think so. I think they need to do it. Mohammed Mutadane sends in a super chat and says, they just announced a Supergirl casting for the Flash movie. So with that, chances Cavill is in the Flash, over or under 50%. Ooh. Mohammed? I'm going to go under, but only a little bit. Only a little bit. I could believe that it could be happening. BK Finest sent in a super chat and says, what if Sword stole Vision from Wakanda using a scroll and Wanda just took him back? I have a hard time believing the Avengers just gave him up. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think, look, as I said, I think episode 8 is going to be at least a lot of flashback where we're going to find out a lot of things we haven't known, because the whole disposition of Vision should definitely be dealt with. I mean, he did die in Wakanda. And the remaining Avengers that weren't snapped, why would they let anyone take him? Especially because the way he was created. I would think that Vision would be one of the most valuable pieces of tech on Earth, and I can't imagine they just absconded with him, or even that the Avengers allowed him to be taken away. Iconic Reaction sent in a super chat and says, I don't know how this will end, but in the words of Ramsay from Game of Thrones, if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. That's what we've been saying. I think this is going to be bad. I think it's going to set up a lot for the future of the MCU. I'm very curious to see where it's all going. I'm there for it, though, because man, oh man, is it fun. Gavin N. just sent in a super chat and says, hi, John, massive fan. I started watching you since your Collider Star Wars commentary. You lost your wallet. Just a theory. What if Agatha is still a figment of Wanda's imagination, and this is all her subconscious trying to portray her as the good guy in her own TV show? Keep up the good work, Gavin. You might be onto something there. I think that that's really interesting. And I think the way the show is going, it's going along those lines somehow. We shall see. Marie Seifring sends in a super chat and says, fun little detail. During the intro credits to episode 7 of WandaVision, the scene with a goldfish in a bowl under Wanda's name is a nod to a fish called Wanda. Really? Man, do I love that movie. Nice catch, Marie. That's really... love it. Love it. Ali Hussein sends in a super chat and says, I was not expecting Monica Rambeau to get her powers this early. I was expecting she'd get her powers in Captain Marvel too. I kind of like the fact that she already has her powers and that we really get to know her now, like more so than if she cameoed in another Marvel movie. I think it's really, really cool. I'm really excited. Ryan Wicks sent in a super chat and says, the Nexus font is the same as the X-Men font. Ooh. Is it really? I'll have to look back at that again. That makes sense. It's a nice nod to everything. Sherry sends in a super chat and says, the radio said some interesting things. Nothing weighing on your conscience, and called the kids creepy and ghosts. Could be nothing? Thoughts? Sherry, I don't think anything in this show is nothing. I think every detail is calculated. I think when it's over, we're all going to sit back and marvel as to just how much detail was put in the show. Clearly, they're having a great time with it. And clearly, we as viewers are in for the long haul. It's going to be, I can't wait to see where they're going to go. I'm really excited about it all. Sherry goes on to say, the symbol on Goodner's cap was not the sword symbol, nor was it shield. Even though she's supposedly Air Force, that's not their symbol either. Ooh, Sherry. That makes me want to go back in and look at that again. Definitely something to look for. One of my favorite things about answering these questions is that everybody, when I'm doing this, I'm like, I want to take all these questions like with me and remember which ones. I got to look into that. That's something to look into. Somebody also told me that on the front of the show, WandaVision, like the logo has been getting dimmer as the show's been going on. Got to go check that out. But that was really interesting. Empire Fan 1980 sends in a super chat and says, so Wanda Hex gave Monica powers. So does that mean she's technically the first mutant? Empire Fan, I wouldn't say that because we don't know the disposition of mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We know they've been called miracles. Maybe they just haven't revealed themselves like the Eternals have been on Earth for thousands of years, but nobody knows they're there. Maybe they're going to play that card as far as mutants are concerned. I don't know. But maybe they will. Hamza Hussein sends in a super chat and says, so no engineer reveal after all. It's kind of a bummer. Maybe we just haven't seen it yet. I don't know. Maybe they will. Because they talked about the engineer, the aerospace engineer, a couple of times. I mean, it wasn't like it was a passing reference. They wanted to make sure that we got it. Ali Hussein sends in a super chat and says, one of two. Was really Agnes behind everything? Why do I feel like she's working for someone or something? Well, because she is. Ali goes on to say, I don't think it's possible that Agnes can handle someone as powerful as Wanda alone. I agree with you. I don't think it is either. I think there's just a lot we don't know. David Petrakis sends in a super chat and saw this online. Fun fact, Avengers Endgame directors, the Russo brothers, worked on happy endings. Yes. And that is a fun fact, which is very, very cool. XT sends in a super chat and says, I think the big reveal in WandaVision is Wanda, but as a full-out MCU version of Scarlet Witch. Great shows. I think you're right. I think by the end of this, Wanda will officially be known as the Scarlet Witch now and forever, for better or for worse. We shall see. Amanda Burns sends in a super chat and says, I don't think Agnes is the main villain. How cool Monica has her powers, which is cool. I think it's cool too. She needs her own movie. I live in Dallas, and the show has kept me sane the past week. Well, Amanda, I'm glad it's kept you sane. I hope you're keeping safe. You and your family are keeping safe. I would not have wanted to be in Dallas this week, to be honest, and I like Dallas. Been there before. So I'm glad you're staying safe. I'm glad the show has been giving you a little bit of comfort. I don't think Agnes is the main villain either. Unless maybe she is, but I don't think so, man. I think we're talking about something else. Something else has got to be going on here. Something bigger that we just can't see. Because it's a pretty wacky villain plot. Let's create this fantasy neighborhood and live our lives as sitcoms. I mean, it's crazy. What a wacky thing to do. It doesn't seem like it's worthy of some world-shaking villain. It's a pretty rickety plot. I want to find out how did this all begin? It's like the old Talking Heads song. Well, how did I get here? I don't know, but I really want to know. Ali Hussein sends in a super chat and says, the book in the basement looks like the Darkhold book from Doctor Strange. Doesn't mean this has something to do with Dormammu. Or does this mean that it has something to do with Dormammu? Agnes working with him? I think Agnes is working for somebody, Allie. I don't know who. I don't think it's Dormammu. I don't. Although it'd be cool to bring Dormammu back. We don't know. There's just too many sorcerers. I have no idea what's going on. But that book, it's the Darkhold, or it could be something else. We don't know yet. Soul Brother Max sends in a super chat and says, maybe Kang the Conqueror is involved. He is also a Nexus being. Oh, in the commercial, the mentioned Nexus pill, and Kang once referred to Wanda as the Nexus. Yes, both Kang and Wanda are Nexus beings, and so in the Marvel comic universe, that means they exist in every universe. So we shall see. That's definitely in play. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought up the term Nexus. At least I don't think they would. Super Crazy Movie Geek sends in a super chat and says, do you know stuff about WandaVision that we don't know yet? I don't. I don't. We don't. Unless John's been lying to me and he has insider information. I don't think. Or maybe he's just been holding out. John, have you been holding out on me? You better not. ER's grandpa sent in a $5 super chat and says, hi, guys. I think the engineer created that awesome vehicle and the military delivered it to Monica. He can still appear later to analyze the damage. Oh, I think you're onto something there, ER's grandpa. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're right about that. Super Crazy Movie Geek sends in a $2 super chat. If Feige merges Fox X-Men, with the MCU, is it a mistake? I don't know. I think it was really audacious to do it. I don't know where that means we are in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men Cinematic Universe. I would have thought that that Feige would have wanted to have built the X-Men universe from scratch inside the MCU, but we'll see. I mean, I think maybe this whole show is pointing in that direction. I'll be curious to see where they're going to go because, look, the X-Men universe is massive. I mean, there's so many characters with so much crossover with the rest of the MCU that to introduce them is to open up an astonishing level of detail. And it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes. And also, remember, we've got 20 years of X-Men movies. So I think the way that it's going to be done in the MCU is going to be methodical and detailed and extremely well thought out. So I don't know if they're going to do that, if they're going to merge them together or not. Frankly, in my own opinion, I think they should reinvent the entire mutant universe within the MCU make it new and fresh. That's what I would do. Pox Haunted sends in a super chat and says, hey, viewer since the AMC days, Wanda seemed to be getting mind controlled by Agatha or Agnes at the end. Agatha, I say, of course you knew Agatha's Agnes. But I don't think Wanda was being controlled before this. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. We clearly saw that Agatha was able to completely somehow control Wanda. Maybe because she was in her base of operations. I don't know. But something was going on there. Tony Hurd sends in a super chat and says, Elizabeth Olsen's performance in this episode reminded me of Hemsworth in Infinity War. Putting on a happy facade, but you see the broken person underneath. I agree, man. Tony, I think Elizabeth Olsen is just crushing it with her performance. So good. So good. Joseph Mitchell sends in a super chat and says, the thing I look forward to most each week is pressing play on a new episode. By the way, let me go back to Tony. I think you're absolutely right, by the way. Putting on a happy facade when you see the broken person underneath. And Hemsworth did such a great job of that. Even when it wasn't comedic, like when he first takes off Thanos' head, look at the performance he's given. Anyway, back to Joseph Mitchell. The thing I look forward to each week is pressing play on a new episode of WandaVision. The thing I dread most every week is that damn please stand by. Laugh out loud. Joseph, I am with you. I am so with you. It's crazy. When you get to that, I'm like, no. Stand by for a week? Come on, man. Pox Haunted sent in a super chat. When I first saw the dungeon with those demons on the wall and the fiery book, I screamed Mephisto. I still think he's involved. I mean, come on. Well, if you had to make an educated guess, that's probably a pretty good guess. All the signs are pointing in that direction. We'll see. And I can't wait. If that's the case, who's going to be Mephisto? We shall see. There's the cockamamie idea that maybe Everything Always was talking about it might be Al Pacino as Mephisto. Man, I'd be so into that. Hoo-ha! I'm Mephisto. I'm here to take over. Ha-ha! Anyway, yeah, that'd be good. Ismael Montoya sends in a super chat and says, "Can we talk about the voice that tells Wanda, do you think this is maybe what you deserved?" I lost it then. What does that mean? I don't know. It was amazing. Who is that? That was some craziness, and I am there for that craziness. So that was pretty crazy. Joseph Mitchell sends in a super chat and says, "I still think there's someone behind Agatha coming, and I still think Wanda is going to snap at this point, and I have no idea who the Skywalker cameo is." You know what, Joseph? I agree with you. I don't even remember who said that there was a Skywalker level cameo. I think what's really interesting is I think who speculating on who the aerospace engineer was and who the Skywalker cameo is has sort of derailed our enjoyment of the show, because we're like waiting for those questions to be answered instead of watching the show anymore as it is. So in a way, I do think it's kind of derailed the conversation. Obi-Wan Kenobi sends in a super chat. Over under 45% that Doctor Strange, Professor X, or Fury show up. I think of all the people that might show up, it's going to be Doctor Strange. I don't see Professor X or Fury showing up anymore. I just don't. Tristan Thorpe sends in a super chat and says, "I'll be honest, I was disappointed with the Agnes reveal. I was hoping Wanda would be the villain through the whole show, but curious to see how it all wraps up." I do too. I think I wasn't disappointed that she's Agatha Harkness. It works with Marvel comic canon. It's definitely something that the universe, the MCU, does and does well. They mine their own comic book lore, which I think is great. I just think what's happened is we've all given ourselves these expectations, and it's sort of derailed where the show is taking us. And I don't know if we haven't set ourselves up for massive disappointment no matter what happens. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Amanda Burns sends in a super chat and says, "I think the big reveal for the episode was Monica getting her power. Who the engineer is comes later. I agree with this. We're getting breadcrumbs each episode to stay hooked." Amanda, totally agree with you. 100%. My Comic Planet sent in a super chat and said, "When I saw Agatha spinning magic in her hand, revealing she's been draining the life force from Wanda all along, I was like, yo, magic scene explained. But do we know she's draining magic from her? She says Wanda's not the only sorceress, so maybe she's just keeping her in check, and somebody else is perhaps sapping her mystical energies. We'll see." Matt Fitch sends in a super chat and says, one of two. Endgame prediction. Agatha's trying to bring somebody, Mephisto, into our realm and needs a Nexus link to do so. Agatha's goal since episode 1 was to get Wanda to have kids by magic, which have shards of Mephisto's soul. Mephisto's in a separate realm and can't get to Earth realm. Only way he can is if a part of him gets in the kids. Agatha now has them and can use her magic to bring Mephisto fully in. She still needs Wanda for a final purpose. You know what, Matt? I think you probably got something there, buddy. That sounds very plausible. Very, very plausible. The kids were obviously created. They were something that it seems like the whole hex was set up to generate, was this idea that Wanda was to have kids. So I think you definitely could be on to something with that. I wouldn't be surprised if you're correct. My Comic Planet comes back and says, when Agatha asked Wanda to look at her mole, this is typically the mark of a witch, and she was wearing purple, the same color Harkness had in the comics. Yeah, absolutely. So her reveal was not necessarily something that was unexpected. B sends in a $5 super chat. After seeing them use the non-ABC Fox The Office theme song, I thought for sure we're going to see Darcy in the Two Broke Girls uniform, but sadly, no. I don't know if they'd have the rights to do that, but that might have pushed it a little too far into the meta realm. But I like the way you think, B. Baxter Kirkdoffer sends in a super chat and says, not only did she kill the dog, I'm almost convinced she killed the kids too. But the MCU likes to bring people back from the dead, so we will see. Now, I think that the kids were, since they're now leaning heavily into the comics lore, Mephisto's energy was used to create the kids in the first place, and they do become young Avengers, so we'll see. I think what's going to be really interesting is when we see, I guess, the final teenage form of the kids, like a little older. Maybe the adult form or the young adult form, the college age version of Wiccan and Speed, maybe one of them was the person that Paul Bettany was talking about. You never know. Matthew Cassidy sends in a super chat, one of two. The Nexus of all realities is finally mentioned in the commercial. This ties into a lot of the Time Variance Authority and the Loki series. Could Owen Wilson be the cameo? Could be. Could be. You never know. Matthew goes on to say, I also believe we could be looking at a group of cosmic villains for Mom. Only question I have is now if the mutants will be officially introduced. I don't think so. So I don't think so either. I think this is too. It would be too gimmicky to me if the mutants were introduced as a result of all this, whatever this is. It turns out to be. I just don't think they would do that. I think they're going to do a slow burn up to that and reveal things later. James Argenta sends in a super chat and says, I'm more on the theory that Agatha will become Nightmare and that Peters is Fox Quicksilver under Agatha's control until Vision wakes him up. That could very well be too. I just want to know, how do they know? If it is Fox's Quicksilver, how did he get there? You know, how did he wind up in that universe? That's kind of what I want to know. But interesting. Lucky Dragon sends in a super chat and says, figured it out. Fake Pietro is Nicholas Scratch, Agatha's son, and when he's not Pietro, he's the rabbit. Ooh, Lucky Dragon. That's interesting. That is interesting. Rabbits are fast. That could be. And it would fit in with what we've seen before. The way she's carrying the rabbit around all the time. Have we ever seen Quicksilver and the rabbit in the same place? But then again, still, did somebody peer through the multiverse to find that Quicksilver? And if they did, why that Quicksilver, not Aaron Taylor Johnson? Because they couldn't get Aaron Taylor Johnson? I don't know. Our friend, the Canadian Singing Postie, sent in a super chat and says, I think the sitcom era was definitely Modern Family with a little Office, but I think they had a bit of Arrested Development with the funky music throughout. Let the John Wick memes start. Poor Sparky. Well, Canadian Singing Postie, I think you're right all about those things. Poor Sparky. I mean, John Wick, Wanda, the kids, they're all John Wick now. Everybody's John Wick on this show. Who's going to open a can of whoop-ass on Agatha? I don't know. Cabbage Bank sends in a super chat and says, a negative of Great Mystery Box shows is some get disappointed if their own version doesn't play out. Will this determine if the show is a hit? I love it. Well, Cabbage Bank, I think that's a really good point. I mean, we were so enamored of this show that maybe we overthought it. We'll see. We'll know if it sticks the landing. I think the 8th episode is going to tell us. We got to have the wind-up and the pitch, and hopefully it'll be a home run. We've got 2 more episodes. Can't wait to see where it goes. Christopher Hasselman sends in a super chat and says, I want to watch, but you're the same time as BlizzCon. Is that true? Well, what can we do? I'm sorry about that. We are who we are. Fuzzy FJ sends in a super chat and says, John, thank you for the spoiler discussion. The best thing about having MCU content at home is jumping and screaming out loud when a reveal happens. I knew that witch was Agatha Harkness. Well, Fuzzy FJ, if you're going to be jumping and screaming out loud, I want video. I think the rest of our viewers do too. like a jumping and screaming reaction video when you find out that that was, in fact, Agatha Harkness. I'm there for you, man. I want to see it. King Eminem says, for a show I wasn't interested in and now love, I can't wait for the other Marvel shows. Who do you think was the missing kid on the milk carton? Good question. I have no idea, because we saw the kids come back. I don't know how far they're going to take that. So I really don't know. I really don't know. King Eminem goes on to say, I love the Office intro reference after the show finale. I still want the Vision TV show from Baby Vision into college. Still my favorite opening, laugh out loud. Yeah, that was hilarious. I love that. And can you imagine doing a Baby Vision? Maybe Marvel will do a Baby Vision comic. Vince Smoke Sanji? Is it Sanji? Nexus could reference a character who made fake escape room called Escape from New Jersey Experience, but he's very minor. Hashtag Snooper's gonna snoop. Did a character make a fake escape room called Escape from New Jersey Experience? Was that a riff on Escape from New York? Could be. I don't know. I don't know what you refer to, but it sounds cool to me. I'm there for it. Robert Carrasco sends in a super chat and says, hello, John and Ann. Do you think if Vision gets his memory back that he will find out about Tony's death? It's basically his father that made him. Ooh, I really like that idea. I love the idea that Vision, too, has someone to mourn. The man who created him. I never thought about that. That's a great idea, Robert. Maybe they'll deal with that in the show. I think they kind of have to. Really, really good. What an insightful thing you have there. Dylan Valenti sends in a super chat and says, something interesting I just found. When Wanda opens the door to see Pietro in episode 5, if you use the descriptive audio for people with impaired vision, it states, Wanda opens the door and sees the version of Quicksilver from the X-Men films. What do you think this means? I think it means just that, because if you're vision impaired or something, you have to know who that is. And maybe it also serves to clarify what's going on. That doesn't mean that that person isn't an illusion or isn't somebody else, but we were supposed to believe for that moment, at least, that Evan Peters was actually the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. Ray Norris sends in a super chat and says, Mailman this episode had a shirt that said Presto and a hat with a rabbit. Starting to think Pietro is just a helper of Agnes who can take many forms. That's a very good guess, too. I really like that idea. I think it's pretty interesting. Vince Smoke Sanji says, The Fly is definitely a reference to Mephisto, as it's how he first appeared in the comic. Oh, is that true? Didn't believe the theory, but now I can't unthink it. That could be. Look, anything that it comes right out of the comics, I'm usually drawn in that direction. I usually think, okay, that must be the direction that they're going in. Alex Alexander says, I killed Sparky too. That scene was both hilarious and creepy as hell, and it gave me goosebumps. Yeah, because who murders a dog? That woman has to die after that. Vince Smoke Sanji goes on to say, it's hard to see, but on one of the pillars of the basement, a symbol is exactly the same as found on the wallpaper in the latest poster. Hashtag mind blown. Yeah, I got to hand it to them. The details that they have on the show are phenomenal. I mean, really terrific. Darius Morgan says, the horror side of Marvel is rising from the depths. I knew right away that book was the Darkhold. Wow, it has to be the Darkhold. No other option. Again, you could be right about that. It absolutely could be. Again, I don't know. It could be. It's pulsating with mystical energy. We'll see. I won't say no. Darth Grant sent in a super chat and said, I just watched the episode again for the second time, and my gripes with the Modern Family parts have lessened. I still feel it was the weakest episode. Yeah, but I wonder, Darth, I've heard other people say that too, and was it the weakest episode because it didn't give some shocking revelation? When really we learned a great deal of stuff about what's going on and who's doing what to whom. I mean, there was a lot in that episode, it just didn't deliver the kinds of bombshells that we were expecting or were looking for. I don't know if it was weak, though, but I know what you mean. William Froggy says, or William, it could be William Froget or Frog, could be Frog. William, how crazy is Wanda going to get when she sees Vision die for the third time? Oh, I think around the bend nuts. She's going to get nuts, man. Going to get nuts. Random person sent in a super chat. Now that Agatha is confirmed, are you more inclined towards Mephisto or Nightmare's involvement? I think at this point, I'm thinking more Mephisto, because now, you're going to introduce this character. They must have plans for him. But then again, I love the fact that, it could be Nightmare, but I love the fact, let's say it's either one of them. Whatever happens in the last 2 episodes of WandaVision are crazy, bizarre, surreal, strange. What a weird corner of the MCU we're in now. And I love that we're just going to jump right in to Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is crazy. How different could those shows be? Aiden B sends in a super chat and says, what do you think the chances are we see Ultron return? They've referenced him quite a bit so far, and I have a feeling we'll see him again. You know what? I've been thinking more and more about Ultron, and he's all tied into all this, so why not? I'd love to see him come back. I am a huge Ultron fan. Darth Grant sends in a super chat again and says, I see some people online saying Agatha has the Darkhold book. I don't think that was it. Ghost Rider took it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agatha beat Ghost Rider? Nah. Unless they're not, they've decided to not think about the continuity of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at all, which is just, it's a distinct possibility. Dean Dada sends in a super chat and says, would love to see Coulson show up with Quake. He is just fun to watch, and it would be nice to bring him back to the MCU. I would love to see Coulson come back, too. He deserves to come back. Vin Smoke Sanj sends in a super chat and says, can we all acknowledge that even with little to no makeup in her hangover PJs, Elizabeth Olsen is one of the most beautiful actresses today? Vin Smoke, I'm right there with you. She absolutely is. And she's just adorable. If you watch her social media presence, you can always see, even videos on YouTube, like Elizabeth Olsen being Elizabeth Olsen for 7 minutes. She seems to be quite the delightful human being. So I wish her all the best and all the success, and I hope she gets an Emmy. Joseph Four sends in a super chat and says, we need a heavy metal version of It Was Agatha All Along. There is one. There's a metal version a guy did on YouTube. If you look up metal, It Was Agatha All Along. Also, why didn't we get the aerospace engineer? I wanted to be Sindren, the alien sword agent. Sindren. Maybe it will be. We don't know yet. I think maybe we're going to have that person revealed, maybe at the end. Who knows? BTS Squad sends in a super chat and says, hey, John, so it was Wanda time yesterday. I freaking loved it. The interaction Wanda and Monica had was so good just because Monica was different now. Yeah, it was great. That squaring off was really, really good. My man Kaz Graphics is here. Kaz Graphics says, there's a heavy metal version of It Was Agatha All Along on YouTube. Yes, sir, there is. Thanks for pointing that out. Preston MM sends in a super chat and says, I still think Evan Peters is Quicksilver, even as suspect as that mid-credits scene made it. It's hard to say. I think it is too. It kind of has to be. Otherwise, somebody peered through the multiverse and found him. So either way, whether Evan Peters is in fact Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men universe, or they just peered into that universe, I think it's pretty clear that the Fox X-Men universe is in fact part of the MCU now, at least through the multiverse. PJ Spitzer in the super chat says, calling it now, Evan Peters is really playing the role of Ralph. Could very well be. He could be a shapeshifter. I don't know. Hell, maybe he's a Skrull, and it was the Skrulls who peered through the multiverse. Caitlin Bennett sends in a super chat and says, I think it's pretty clear Agnes was hampering Vision and Darcy. Vision assumes it's Wanda, and Wanda assumes Vision is upset with her and wants to leave. I think all of that is in play. I think that everybody's who's zooming who, and we're going to find out. I hope these last 2 episodes are as bananas as I hope, because I really want this show to stick the landing. Federico Della Casa sends in a super chat and says, the Book of the Darkhold But behind is not Mephisto, but Chthon, an elderly primeval god that created magic in the Marvel Universe and possessed Wanda in the comics. Could be. I mean, again, that's not a bad bet. But then again, these characters start straining the edge of credulity. If they're too supernatural or too crazy, would we believe them? Can we reconcile them with the rest of the MCU? Elif Berazili, Elif Berazili, or just Razli. I think it's Razli. Elif Berazili. I think that's it. Elif Berazili. It's a cool name. Love the scene when Monica went through the barrier. What was your favorite scene? I love that scene as well. I thought that scene was great. But I have to say, I love the Agatha reveal and the song. I mean, I just loved it. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was so great. Suddenly I felt like we were at Disneyland or in a Danny Elfman scored film or something. I loved it. It was great. And the whole reveal and everything that she was doing. Palogia sends in a super chat and says, the stork came back for a meaningless cameo just to show that John Campea isn't omniscient. You might be right about that, but John Campea is pretty omniscient. But it was nice to bring the stork back. That was nice. A good callback from early episodes. So we remember where we came from. No, but I thought that was great. Yeah. Joshua Tabak says, lots of ground to cover in only 2 more episodes. Could episode 8 be 30 minutes and the last movie length? A play on the line from the show Community. 8 seasons in a movie, with the first 8 episodes being a season. You know what, Joshua? I like that idea. Why not? Why not? Terry Youngman Jr. sends in a super chat and says, I think Wanda was already pregnant during Infinity War, making the kids 100% real. What do you think? I don't think so. Because ultimately, how does a synthezoid and a human being procreate? I mean, Cylons did with humans, but I don't know if, and apparently a replicant from the Blade Runner universe did, but I don't know how that would work. No, I think, like in the comics, the kids were total products of arcane energies. Dwayne Woodley sent in a super chat and said, I believe that Nightmare is involved too, and maybe, just maybe, the rabbit could be Doctor Strange. It seems that the rabbit was trying to warn Wanda. Ooh, I like that idea, Dwayne. I like that idea that he's hiding in plain sight. Why not? That would be a great reveal. The rabbit is actually Stephen Strange. Frostbite is here with the super chat. Frostbite says, Wanda straight up tried to kill Monica. She didn't know she had powers when she attempted to smash her into the ground. Yeah, no, it's true. She really did. But then again, does she even know who Monica is? I mean, it's not like they're longtime friends or anything other than now she knows that all she knows is Monica betrayed her. At first, she knew Monica as somebody living in the Hex. Now, Monica has become an enemy. Energy of the Hex, enemy of the state, enemy of Wanda. Horacio Pagani sends in a super chat and says, hi, John. First of all, excuse my English. Do you think the Luke Skywalker level cameo has something to do with I'm your father? Magneto is Wanda's father. Maybe Elizabeth Olsen gave us a clue there. Maybe. Maybe. It's, again, it's so hard to say at this point. I don't know. Magic K sends in a super chat. It was Agatha all along. I love that. I just love it so much. Mickey B sends in a super chat and says, dude, why so early today? 5 p.m. East Coast. Ugh. Now I can't do my weekly ritual. Watch after work, then tune in live. Arrgh. Yeah, you can. You can still do both. Bully McGuire sends in a super chat and says, I thought the episode was not one of the best, but like seeing Monica with powers. Was underwhelmed with the aerospace person and hoped for someone cooler. I don't think we've seen the last of that person. Remember, we just saw the people delivering that. I don't know if we saw the aerospace person. Gary Ritchie sends in a super chat and says, the more I think about it, the more I think Quicksilver is from the X-Men universe. I think Agatha needs to break Wanda's will, and what better way to do that than for her to see her brother die twice? Could be, but Wanda doesn't know that is her brother. Has never really believed that's her brother, so it's a little odd. I think the whole thing is a little odd. So, Soul Brother Max sends in a super chat and says, I believe last week Monica said her engineer had arrived, so I believe her loyal friend was the engineer. But why wouldn't Why wouldn't they make a big deal of introducing her to other people? But you might be right about that. We'll see. I also got the feeling that we didn't see the engineer. They just delivered they had the materials delivered. But then again, it was Sword's equipment, wasn't it? I don't know. Comic Court sent in a super chat and says, "Hey, I checked out that book at the library. I can't believe you found it." Yes, indeed. Indeed. You never know what you're going to find at the library. Tedward McColliday sends in a super chat and says, "What an episode. How powerful is Agatha in the comics? Hey, man, she survived being burned at the stake during the Salem witch trials. In the MCU, do you think..." Yeah, she was back there even then. "In the MCU, do you think she will end up as being powerful as Wanda, even more so?" No, Tedward. I think that Scarlet Witch is going to be set up as one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Dragon 10 says, "It was Agatha all along." How catchy was that song? It was catchy AF. I loved it. I thought it was great fun. Thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. Ted Wu sent in a super chat and said, "Do you think at the end of WandaVision we'll get some kind of closure, or will we get a cliffhanger and have to wait for Spider-Man or Doctor Strange?" I think we're going to get both. I think we're going to get closure on one thing, and then we're going to get a cliffhanger, a big cliffhanger, that leads us into something else. That's just my feeling now. Derek Lard sent in a super chat and says, "Imagine Jimmy meeting Reed, John Krasinski, next week. It's good to finally see you out of the office. We would have both Jims in the MCU." That would be too meta. I can't even begin to. Derek, that would be. Actually, I kind of want to see that now. Angela Dashner sends in a. Oh my God, Angela! Thank you so much for supporting the channel at this level. Angela sends in a 99.99 super chat. Wow, thank you so much, Angela. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. John, love that you do these discussions. You are the best. Love this series so much. Every week is a new surprise. What do you think about her killing the dog, and what powers do you think Monica will have? Listen, Angela, as a dog lover and a dog owner myself, and the glee with which she said, "Oh, and I killed the dog too," I wanted to punch her smug face. Killing a dog is like the ultimate villain turn. It's terrible. You don't come back from that. I do not forgive. It's like Vito Corleone in The Godfather. I do not forgive. I'm going to blame some of the people in this room, and then I do not forgive. I think it was terrible. But then again, what easier way to show how villainous she really is? And I think Monica will probably have the same, those same powers she has in the Spectrum or the photon persona, where she can manipulate all different kinds of energy and use energies in different ways. That's kind of where I think they're going with her. And we've already kind of been given a taste of it. And I really like it. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, but the fact that she's in Captain Marvel 2, it's going to be really interesting to see where they take her. I honestly don't know. Adrian Rivera sends in a super chat and says, "Do you think Pietro could be a recasted, revived, possessed version of the MCU Quicksilver?" Could be, but again, it's hard to say. I really don't know. I really don't know where they're going with all of that. I really don't. I can't wait to see where they're going, but I don't know. Levi R. sends in a super chat and said, "That could still be the Darkhold. Like you said, Kevin Feige wants nothing to do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Could be the same book, just redesigned for the MCU." Levi, I think that you're close. I think that the Darkhold is really important in the comics lore, and I think why not redesign it for the MCU? That's what they do, is they redesign things and make them their own. I mean, obviously they did that with Spider-Man. Why not the Darkhold? And show us something more along the lines of what we saw in the comics. I think you might be right about that. Vinsmoke Sanji sends in another super chat. "The book could be the Necronomicon. In the comic, Agatha Harkness said it could be useful to help the Scarlet Witch." Could very well be. Maybe, we think that, what if Agatha's playing the long game, and what she's doing is to snap Scarlet Witch out of whatever's going on? Maybe she's actually an ally and not a bad person, although she's been sold to us as a villain, so maybe, in fact, the simplest answer is always the correct answer. Termite 30 sends in a super chat and says, Feige not only grew up in Westfield, but his grandfather was a TV producer on soap operas in the 50s. I didn't know that. Wow, that's amazing. No wonder he loves this so much. And I heard Elizabeth Olsen on a video today say it was Kevin Feige's idea, the whole thing. How cool is that? I love that. Santino84 sends in a super chat and says, so with the Nexus commercial, does that mean WandaVision is the introduction to the MCU multiverse? Oh, I think absolutely it is. I mean, we saw the quantum realm. We know that there's multiverses because of Endgame, but I think this is going to be introduced in a big way because the Nexus beings, and she is one. I think that that's exactly what's going on here. Juan Lopez sends in a super chat, and I killed Sparky too. I got chills after that, yeah, because anybody who's going to straight up kill a dog deserves to die. Demon05 sends in, like Demon05 sends in a super chat. I can't get the Agatha song out of my head. I can't either. But it's kind of a fun, as an earworm goes, there are worse ones. But it's fun because I always get the image of her. It's like this music video of her being witchly. I love it. FaZe Chimp sends in a super chat and says, in my opinion, this is a big episode for the MCU as a whole. We got a new hero and a new villain. I agree with you. And it might not be the shocking revelation that we were all looking for or thought was coming, but it's still pretty memorable. It's still pretty big in terms of if you contemplate the ramifications for the Marvel Universe. It's big stuff going on. Big stuff. Rita Senorita sends in a super chat and says, I heard a theory that Wanda met Agnes posing as a psychiatrist, and that's how she manipulated Wanda into making the hex. Maybe that was part of it. I think we're going to get a flashback episode. We're going to find all this stuff out. Is it C. Rapier Copeland or Rapier? Copeland sent in a super chat. More than the movies, this series not only proving how genius Feige is as a producer, but also how genius he is as a Marvel fan. He's one of us. Oh, absolutely. Feige, this is so deep-cut, comic lore heavy. I think it's great. And it's exactly what you want out of a producer. You know, Feige knows the Marvel Universe. He knows what he's doing, and it's great. Paul Fletcher sends in a super chat and says, John, I sent in a theory 2 days ago that you still haven't read yet, and it still holds up after episode 7, and it's Fox's Quicksilver. Well, that's what people are saying. I think he is Fox's Quicksilver. Ted Wu sends in a super chat and says, Catherine Hahn is killing it. I think she is. She's amazing. Amazing. Boy named Sue says, Justice for Sparky, or Justice of Sparky. You're right. Sparky will be avenged. Soul Brother Mac sends in a super chat and says, wasn't the beekeeper turned into an ice cream vendor? I don't know. Was he? I don't remember that. Perhaps I missed that. Maybe he was. Maybe he was. I don't remember. Matthew DeFritis says, felt Catherine Hahn thing coming. She's too great an actress to just have her be a side character like in Step Brothers. Yeah, no, she had to take front and center. She's been great, and the fact that she's doing the heel turn is terrific. Or is it a heel turn? I mean, that's the real question. So many questions to find out what's going on. Dragon10 sends in a super chat and says, hashtag justice for Sparky. Justice for that. You know, you don't kill a dog in a show like this without being avenged. Somebody is going to get justice for Sparky. HOA Productions sends in a super chat. Is that House of Something Productions? Did you see the post-credit scene? I did. Hashtag Snooper's got a snoop. Where's that going to lead? Is Monica under the spell now? What's going on? I don't know. Kevin Rubio sends in a super chat and says, turns out Mephisto were just the friends we met along the way. Yes, Kevin, but you never know where those friends will lead you. Who knows, or what direction they point in. JB sends in a super chat and says, Monica did say, just got to meet my guy when referring to the aerospace engineer in episode 6, so it could still be Reed Richards. JB, I'm telling you, I agree with you. I agree with you. We have not seen the last, or we haven't seen the engineer at all, but we're going to see them. C. Rapier Copeland sends in a super chat and says, is it just me, or is the mailman always conveniently there when stuff's happening? I'm ready for him to morph into something, laugh out loud. Oh, I think he absolutely is going to morph into something, unless he literally is just one of the townspeople, or maybe he's the guy in witness protection. Who knows? Sebastian David sends in a super chat and says, did Agatha turn the kids into the bug and the rabbit? I got to tell you, Sebastian, that's what I thought at first. Because you got the rabbit and you got this giant bug. I think perhaps she might have. That's what I thought. Marcus102 says, it's interesting to me that the book possibly being the Darkhold book, in Avengers 2, when Vision is first awakened, Thor made reference to a black hole, and at the center of that, Thor was pointing to the Mind Stone in Vision's head. Interesting. Could be. Could very well be. Mr. 47 says, when the cameo didn't appear, I felt like Wanda when she said, I'm not amused. Why am I sitting here talking to you? This is stupid. Laugh out loud. Well, you know what? The show didn't tell us there was a cameo. You know, that's what we've gleaned from interviews in the real world. And it's funny, we tend to, once we hear something, we grab onto it as fans, but what if there's nothing like what we thought, you know? We don't know what whoever said that. Was it Elizabeth who said it? Elizabeth Olsen? Maybe we don't quite understand where she was coming from. Live in Spirals sends in a super chat. Agatha's intro implies that she entered into the Hex after its creation. I agree, and has been blending in. Definitely explains Pietro asking how Wanda did it. 100%. I 100% agree with you. She came in late to the party. We'll see what happens. I think that's what we're going to get in the next episode, a flashback that explains a lot of this. Jean-Francois Dorian sends in a super chat and says, if Spider-Man Far From Home is 7 months after WandaVision and it didn't have influence on the movie, how can Spider-Man 3 be the next chapter? Will Spider-Man be before Spider-Man Far From Home? That's what I think. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. Demon5 sends in a super chat and says, not mentioned as often as Mephisto or Nightmare as Chthon. I think he'll probably... I think it's a possibility, especially since he also has direct ties to Wanda in the comics. No, he does. It's going to be interesting to see if there's somebody else and how they're going to tie that back in and explain that person or that creature or that entity's involvement. Nerds Engage sent in a super chat and says, I just want to say to everyone's theory, right or wrong, who cares? Enjoy the show. It's been fun, incredibly fresh, and a new chapter for the MCU. No cookie cutter end, Feige said. This connects to Doctor Strange too. Look, nerds, I agree with you. I think that everyone's overthinking it. We're not enjoying the show. We're projecting our desires onto what we want to happen, and it's kind of weird. I mean, but also it's because it shows how engaged people are. It's pretty neat that we're in a world where people are that engaged. Late Paul sends in a super chat and says, R.E. Billy and Tommy, purely from a storytelling POV, you don't kill them off screen. I think if they do go, it'll be in the finale, and they'll be grown up more. I agree with that. Hashtag Justice for Sparky. Late Paul, I think you're absolutely right about that. We're going to see them age into their final form, whoever they're going to be playing, and they'll still remain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe doing other things. Jaden Styles Nasita says, hey, John, love the show. I've been here since the movie blog. Wow. I'm worried, too, about the ending. I hope Agatha is not a big bad and it's just Wanda going crazy. I think she's a big bad, although maybe it is just Wanda going crazy. Maybe this is all her weird psychosis. Maybe all of this, both inside and outside inside the Hex and outside the Hex, have been her program. That they're all part of the same program. Maybe we're part of that program too, and we don't actually exist. That we're part of Wanda Maximoff's reality in some weird way. I don't know. Demon05 says, could the basement be the Nexus for Marvel lore? It could be. It has ties to some future Marvel characters we know are coming, like Kang. It felt ancient. Hopefully we get Man-Thing in this, plus the commercial. I know. It's the Nexus is a big deal and setting up a major concept that we need moving forward in the MCU. Jared Manninins is here and sends in a super chat. Fantastic episode. Grats on the new house and pool. Well, thanks, Jared. Not my new house and pool. I'm saying thanks for John and Ann, and thanks for supporting both this channel and my own. I very much appreciate it. Adrian Chandler sends in a super chat and says, Franklin Beekeeper Guy was shown in the first shot of the next episode. He was the ice cream vendor in Brady Bunch style sitcom intro. Oh, really? Well, there you go. That's good to know. He's now the ice cream vendor. I like that. Live and Spiral sends in a super chat and says, now that Agatha has revealed herself to be evil and a villain, what are her survival odds? The MCU needs to stop killing its fun villains off all the time. I don't think she's going to die. I think she's going to carry over into whatever's coming. Like they said at the end of Terminator, there's a storm coming. I know. I think that's happening. I do. Sebastian Diaz sends in a super chat and says, John, put one and one together. No kids in Westview, missing kids mentioned in the show, and the milk. Agatha kidnaps and uses kids for some reason. That could very well be too. Something more diabolical is going on here than even we know. Interesting. Joshua Howard says, if Mephisto does appear, I want him to have a theme song too. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, and that would go a long way in his theme song to explain who in fact he is. That's really funny. I like that idea. D-Man05 sends in a super chat and says, could the attack Hayward is going to launch on Westview be an early version of Project Cataract? Could Vision fight a weaponized version of himself? Ooh, I didn't think about that. Look, it's all part of the comic lore, and you know Kevin Feige, he's always leaning into his comic lore, so very possibly. Tiona Paris did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and she described the final episodes as epic and incredibly sad, so we shall see. It's true. I can't wait to see where it's going to go. I think it's going to be amazing, whatever it is. King 2002 says, did you catch the missing kids sign on Wanda's milk carton? Yes. Seems like more links between links of Spider-Man posters in NYC with missing kids. Strange, right? Yeah. Well, you know what's really interesting? You notice that the Spider-Man movies are called, you've got Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and this movie, they're not in a particular order. So this movie, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I think the new Spider-Man movie is absolutely going to be a prequel to Far From Home. I really do. William Stewart says, in the Marvel one-shot with the fake Mandarin, was broken out of jail by the Ten Rings and there was a riot. Could have escaped or moved elsewhere. Oh, I totally think that is true. Totally think that's true. Jeremy Hawker sends in a super chat and says, I enjoy the show, but I kind of wanted more episodes that were about Wanda and Vision having everyday adventures. Only the first 3 were like that. Yeah, but Jeremy, it probably would have got old if that's, that was all that was going on. We got that first 3 episodes was like Act 1 of a movie. The next 3 episodes are Act 2. We just saw the first part of Act 3, and it had to go somewhere. And I think, it's the fact that I'm reading all these questions proves that I went to a good place. Tumbling Turdnado sends in a super chat and says, more like Happy Endings title sequence. Yeah, it's true. It's true. William Stewart sent in a super chat and says, oops, I was referring to Justin Hammer being broken out of jail in the one shot with the Mandarin. Yes, I kind of knew that, and I didn't want to correct you and be mean. But since you're corrected yourself, I know what you're saying there. Indeed, it was Justin Hammer. CBev 1994 says, I'd love to see Monica pull a Quicksilver scene, music and everything, on this Quicksilver since her powers let her move at light speed. You know what? That would be awesome, but that scene, those Quicksilver scenes that Brian directed were very difficult to pull off, so I don't know if they could do that, but maybe they can. It is Marvel after all. They have enough money where they could do anything. Lowell sent in a super chat and says, the opening credits were an homage to the Russo brothers in the show Happy Endings. They directed a few episodes. Yep, yes they did, and you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Twan sent in a super chat and says, hey John, when do you think Marvel will release the Eternals teaser trailer? Gosh, it's not coming out till November now. I think it's going to be a while, but it's done. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like. I really want to see it. I don't know. I'm dying to see it. I want to see anything. We were supposed to get it last Christmas. DeGaulle sends in a super chat and says, who was Johnny's witness protection program? Was it Agatha? I don't think it was. I think that's another story that we're going to find out. We're going to find out rather soon. Simon Lachance sends in a super chat and says, something that has been bothering me is people always mentioning Feige when talking about WandaVision. Love him, but put some respect on Jack Schaefer's name. Oh, I think I give her all the credit in the world, but I think this was Feige's conception, and she was executing what he wanted even more so than not. I mean, listening to Elizabeth Olsen talk about how this was his initial idea, But yes, no doubt. Jack Schaefer, she's done incredible work on the show. Andreas Benitez says, I think they'll defeat Agnes, but she'll give Mephisto Nightmare access to this reality through the kids. Mom is about getting the kids back versus the big bad. Well, that's definitely something that could be very. I'm there with that. I like that prediction. Could very well be. Graydon Youngberg sends in a super chat and says, my Quicksilver theory is that Agnes needed a body or a host for Pietro Maximoff's consciousness, so she cherry-picked Peter Maximoff from the X-Men universe. I don't know about that. I mean, that's such a random thing. Imagine you're looking through the universe like you're looking at Earth's history, and that Quicksilver is so different that they don't really mesh with each other. But that's why I want to know. That's why I'm so interested. How are they going to make that work? What is the explanation for having that? Having him. Dark Horizon says, hey, John, been a while, but they did the Office intro. Nice touch. I agree. It was really good. Andreas Giannakopoulos sends in a super chat and says, hey, John, do you believe this relic that Wanda sees in the basement is an actual book from the Doctor Strange library? I think it is. I do. I think it is. Whatever book that is, I think it's actually from the Sanctum Sanctorum. I think it's there. And I think Doctor Strange was probably out sleuthing, which is why we haven't seen him yet. He was trying to figure out what the hell's going on from his end. Who took my damn book? Empire Fan 180 sends in a super chat and says, I was thinking the house flipping out was to thing. I was thinking the house flipping out was, the house flipping out, yes, the reality changing, was Wanda's hex is falling apart around her, or it's a rose red Winchester house thing. No, I think it's her falling. I think it's falling around her. I think it's her doing. I think we see that it's telling us that she's losing her grip on her own powers, or they're not as powerful, or something is siphoning them off. I think that might have been what that indication was, is that somebody's making her weak by pulling out her arcane energies. Sith Sidoti sends in a super chat that says, Vision's eyes are robotic again. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, they're coming and going. I think however they want him to be in that universe. So, crazy. Crazy. Phil Corvelli sends in a super chat and says, came across a post on Instagram suggesting that the cicada was Mephisto in disguise because he apparently takes the form of a fly in the comics. Could be, or it could be one of the kids. Could be. Could very well be. Monsanti Brock sends in a super chat. Hey, John, can you talk about the mid-credit scene? Monica found an entrance to the basement. The fake Quicksilver hit her over the head, cut to black. Well, she was also possessed by the arcane energy. Something overcame her, and if it's Quicksilver that was able to do that or wield that energy, that means Quicksilver certainly isn't the person he appears to be, and he's absolutely something very different. So I think that was telling us there's a lot we don't know. To quote Ricky Ricardo, you got some splaining to do. To Jasper Hara sends in a super chat and says, I know what happened to the kids. Agatha bit them. To Jash, I think you might be right. Or ate them. Why not? She ate the kids. She's a real witch. She cooked them up like a Hansel and Gretel type of a deal. The real Ralph T sends in a super chat and says, the theme was from the ABC show Happy Endings. Yep, absolutely. Russo brothers themselves. DGMC says, I'm just happy we have an idea who the baddie is. Well, one baddie, a baddie. What if there's multiple baddies? We'll see who the big bad is. Kirk Novak says, I believe it was all for the children. Team Billy. Let's see them come back. I think they will. Havoc Thoughts sent in a super chat and says, hey, John, by the way, you were right. Agnes did kill the dog. See, John is omnipotent. He knew. Jeffy Master sends in a super chat and says, the purple haze around Wanda's head makes me think Agatha used Wanda to create the hex, hence why Wanda doesn't remember its creation. Could be, but there's got to be more to it than that. Like, if you got an evil plan, why would you do something like create that hex, which is going to be noticed, and every agency in the world, I'm surprised only S.W.O.R.D. is there. They probably cordoned it all off, but seriously, it's like, what? I mean, talk about attracting attention to yourself. That's some crazy shit. Jason H. sends in a super chat and says, did you see the delivery guy mailman with the mischievous look? Is he Mephisto Nightmare? You know what? Nothing. I have no idea, but it could absolutely be him because he is suspect AF. Amber Annie sends in a super chat, one of two. The Nexus makes me wonder if this is how mutants will be introduced. They're in a separate universe, which is why no one has heard of them. I think maybe this is my first time contributing. I just wanted to say that I love your show. Well, Amber Annie, thank you very much for contributing. I've believed, I just don't think that mutants are suddenly going to pop into the MCU. I think they've already been here. I think they've been here a long time. We just haven't heard their stories yet. There's going to be some reason for that. They already know. So craziness. We'll see. But again, thank you for the super chats. Howard D says Monica getting her powers here is great because it makes her distinct from Carol Danvers. I would have hated it if she became Captain Marvel Jr. No, you know what? I agree too. I mean, once Carol Danvers took over, they kept her and they made her different characters. They gave her, she's had multiple superhero identities, but I agree with you. I wouldn't want them to take away. It wouldn't have been good if she was Captain Marvel Jr. Plus, I love her. She's great. Hollid Love sends in a super chat and says, I thought it was interesting that they showed that the Hex is 3D. Only about half of it is above ground. Not a theory. That's what they showed. I agree. But is there a ceiling? Like, could you fly a helicopter into it? Do we know that? Is it totally covered? I don't know. Because remember, from the inside, you can't really tell it's there. So, do we have a confirmation on that? I mean, they shoot rockets through it. So, how does that work? I don't know. Timothy Platt says, curse you, Kevin Feige, for getting me super invested and excited and creating unrealistic expectations and hype in my own head. It's all your fault, laugh out loud. Yeah, but Timothy, maybe it's something good to remember. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the way we've been speculating about all this stuff, the funny thing is, whenever you're speculating about what they could and couldn't do, it's been done. Not only has it been done, it was already done like a year ago, and we're just now discovering it. It's not like they can change it. Like, the fans are right. Let's go in there and change it. Give them more of a jolt. Barbarella Haymaker sent in a super chat and says, Vision equals Simon, Wonder Man. Cameo, Carlson or Strange. Westview is New Salem. Setting up West Coast Avengers and Young Avengers. I think Barbarella, there's something to that. Now, are you an electric Barbarella, like Duran Duran sang about, or just Barbarella? I don't know. I want to know, but you know what? I think could be. Carlson could show up. It could be. Ian Wendu says they could have had the reveal one episode earlier, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, the way it's structured, this was the beginning. Remember, it's 3 episodes. It's 3 episodes were Act 1, 3 episodes were Act 2. This is the beginning of Act 3, and I think it was a great reveal to take us into the last 2 episodes of the season. Koa1708 sends in a super chat and says, superhero landing. Yes, Monica Rambeau had the classic superhero landing. I wonder if she would do that in the real world or she just did it because she was in the Hex. Brad Canfield says, Paul Bettany's former agent, your career is over. Paul Bettany, hold my Mind Stone. Have you ever heard that story? That Paul Bettany was actually like out on Sunset Boulevard and he'd come out of his agent's office and his agent actually did tell him your career is over. And he said he went outside. He was feeling a little weak-kneed because, his own agent is saying your career is over. And he was sitting on the sidewalk and he got the call. I think he got the call from, I don't know who it was from. Was it from Favreau or was it? No, maybe not Favreau. It was from Feige. I don't remember who he said it was from, but can you come in and do it? And he's like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Oh, maybe it was Joss Whedon because it was Ultron. Brad Canfield sends in a super chat and says, Paul Bettany. Oh, that was I just read. Aditya Sanjeev. Is it Aditya? Sanjeev says they could have easily included a small fight between Photon, Monica, and Wanda. It would have made up for the small runtime, at least some good action. I take it you weren't a big fan of the episode. They could have, but I don't think this is your standard superhero fight kind of a thing. They could have had a knockdown, drag-out battle, but I don't think that's what's really going on here. I think there's more to it than that. Joseph Mitchell sends in a super chat and says, just when you think you know the answers, Kevin Feige changes the questions. He totally does. Courtney Haynes sends in a super chat and says, maybe the combo of the Hex and Agatha's powers that allow a porthole to another world. Is that where the twins and Quicksilver came from? I have no effing clue. Well, in the comics, I think that, Mephisto's power and Wanda conjured those children up. She has her own kids. But like you, Courtney, I don't know either. But something, they had to have seen into the multiverse of something. I don't know how that's going to work. Jeffy Master sends in a super chat and says, wait a minute. When Vision woke anyone before, they were in pain when they're being controlled. Agnes obviously wasn't for good reasons, but why wasn't Darcy? Good question. I don't know. I don't know if they're in pain. I just think the longer you've been in there, the more bewildered you are. And can you imagine being held against your will for that long, especially if you knew it was happening? Yeah. James Shimo says, if and when mutants are introduced as Hayward use the info from Vision's dissection to help Boulevard Trask create Master Mold and the Sentinels, could very well be. I mean, it's hard to say because we have no idea what the X-Men are going to be used or how they're going to be used in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we don't know. Jeffrey Solomon sends in a super chat and says, Strange sent Pietro from another time. He said he heard she needed him and then he was there, like Spidey heard Strange after the Hulk snap. Maybe I could. That's not bad. I like that. But then again, there's a lot of assumptions there about Strange and everything that's going on. That's the thing with this show, because so many of us are well versed in not just the MCU but the comic lore. When they do these shows, we have questions like, "What they could do this and they could do that," and the longer it takes to get to the end of the story, we have time to marinate on it, which is kind of interesting. It's not the same when you're watching a movie because it comes so fast and furious, headlong at you. And so, in a way, these theories have been a lot of fun. But I think maybe kind of are we being set up for disappointment because in our minds we have this epic thing playing out. And maybe it's not as epic as we think it is. It's tough. My Comic Planet says if Monica couldn't break through the Hex with the sword vehicle, what made her so sure she could break through herself with no helmet at that? Probably because she could feel the power coursing through her, is what I would imagine. Or something. Or she just knew. Intuition? Hamza Hussein says, what did you think of the post-credit scene? I loved it. I loved it too. I mean, we now see Monica under the control of Abigail Harkness. Could be. Again, Snooper's going to snoop. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Ted Wu says, do you think the other Disney Plus MCU TV shows will follow this short episode format? You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. I'd hope like Falcon and Winter Soldier would be a little different. I mean, that I have no sense of that, but I would hope so. I'd want to see more story. But I think in this case, it works really well. These bite-sized kind of episodes, these half-hour episodes, they get in and out very fast, and you're left going like, wait, what? So I like it. Cody says, Elizabeth Olsen does a damn good Claire Dunphy. Put a blonde wig on her, and I've been convinced she was Julie Bowen. You're not wrong there. Now I'm thinking about that. Now I can't not think about that. You are right, Cody. Joshua Tabak sends in a super chat and says, I know we all hate the length, but aren't these all 22 minutes of runtime and not the 7 minutes of end credits like a real sitcom? It seems well planned. Yeah, they've been very wildly different times, I think, but the credits have to be as long as they are contractually. And same with the opening, so they have to. I think it is well planned. I think they've really planned this out. It's a joy to watch because I really do feel that we're in the hands of people that know what they're doing. Mr. J-Rack sends in a super chat and says, "Could the rabbit Scratchy, Nicholas Scratch, be the missing person? Could explain why they never ID'd them yet they were brought to WandaVision with Agatha. Could be. That could very well be." The real Ralph T sends in a super chat and says, is the bunny Senor Scratchy actually Ralph? I maybe. All I can say is maybe it could be. I think the rabbits, something's going on. Something's going on there. I don't know what it is, but that rabbit, suspect. Andrew Power sends in a super chat and says, love WandaVision, but why was the circus full of life, yet in the Halloween episode, when Vision's closer in distance to Wanda, the characters are frozen? I think I have an answer for that, because when Wanda was expanding the Hex, the people that were sucked in were immediately tended to. They were transmuted, and they were brand new into the Hex, and they needed to be acclimated to it all or something, because they were new. The other people had been in the Hex since whenever it was created, and they were kind of off the beaten track, whereas the Sword team was brand new to the Hex, and she probably had to deal with those people because she didn't want anyone to show up and confront her. R. Henry 1980 says, I think the fly on the wall was Speed. Same colors. Oh, good catch. I think you might be right about that. Ashlea A. says, you control the Hex. What would your sitcoms be? Ooh. You know what? If I controlled the Hex, I would make them all from the... I'd let's see, Bewitched, because that'd be fun. No, I'd probably do... I'd do the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. Gilligan's Island. I Dream of Jeannie, although that would be kind of redundant. Barney Miller, because it's one of MASH. Maybe the Wonder Years, because I want Winnie Cooper. Still, I mean, she's old enough. I don't mean the Winnie Cooper in the show. Danica McKellar. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Those are some of the ones I would have them be. Andrew Reynolds sent in a super chat and says, is Hayward Hydra? Did he kill Monica's mother to be in charge of Sword? Is Pietro the missing kid on the milk carton? Again, Andrew, all good questions, all good theories. I don't know. DGMC sends in a super chat and says, me versus theories. The only way to win is not to play. DGMC, I'm beginning to think like you. I don't want to know any more theories. I just want to watch and see what's going on, because I think the theories, we are all overthinking it. And I think we've all set ourselves up for disappointment, but maybe not. Ashlea A says, if the site crashed at 12 a.m., imagine if it was 6 p.m. Oh, I know. I mean, I couldn't get on both weeks in a row. I don't think they were ready for it. Ian Wendu says, will Sword be around in 8 months? I don't know. Are they still around during the time of Far From Home? We don't know. Jack Wolf sends in, I'm beginning more and more to think that Spider-Man 3 is actually a prequel to Far From Home. But then again, none of the events, they didn't seem too fazed by what happened or what was going on. So we'll see. Jack Wolf, and you know what? I would imagine, no, I'm wrong about that. Forget it. Spider-Man 3 is not a prequel to Far From Home. It's got to take place afterwards because of J. Jonah Jameson. Something's going on, and Spider-Man's going to get sucked into it. Jack Wolf says, in regards to people calling this episode filler, I think people are using that word with actually knowing what it means. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I don't think this episode was filler at all. It was a big, big episode. Jonathan Haley says, not totally in love with It's Been Me, muhahaha, reveal, but Catherine Hahn kills it in the role. I hope there's more for her to come in the MCU. I think there is, and I think we haven't seen the last of her, and don't count out the show quite yet. Michael Bokar sends in a super chat and says, I noticed on the carton of milk that changed on Wanda that it has a missing child on it, looking almost similar to those of the Spider-Man 3 set pics. Yeah, I think all of it is connected. We just don't know, but I think it's connected. Or it could just be an art department thing. You never know. Joseph Mitchell sends in a super chat and says, in my best Kirk Lazarus voice, this is the show playing the show disguised as another show. It's true. It is absolutely true. I love that. Kirk Lazarus. This is the show playing the show disguised as another show. I like that. And Robert Downey Jr. There you go. JMeister25 sends in a super chat and says, oh my God, this episode was fantastic, and screw the people who say, wow, there's no action and this show is only character-based. Yeah, I mean, there is action. It's just, not the kind of action. It's a drama. It's a sci-fi psychodrama. It's a sci-fi fantasy psychodrama. I don't know why people expected action. It was not built that way. Echo sends in a super chat and says, hey, John, you've already covered this, but you should totally do the pre-games for Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes. Go Patriots, by the way. Well, Echo, so much for the Patriots this year. As a Seahawks fan, I'd say, good on Tampa Bay and Brady. But yeah, I think John will do pregame shows, because why not? Gilberto Padilla sends in a super chat and says, since the story carries over into Spider-Man, what if the cameo is a prior Spider-Man villain or possibly a prior Spider-Man? Highly unlikely. Could be, but I don't think so. Although, people would love it if Spider-Man showed up. I just don't know what that would have to do with Wanda. You know, they have to have whoever the cameos are and whoever's coming into the show in the last 2 episodes, it has to refer or it has to have something to do with the show that we're watching. At least I think so. Juan Lopez says, I know a guy, said Monica. That was a woman, so technically we haven't seen the engineer yet, people. I agree with you. I think 100% that is absolutely 100% true. I totally believe that. JMaster25 says, Agatha may have been manipulating things, but I still think she's working for someone else. We don't know who Ralph is. I know, and we're going to find out. David Baker sends in a super chat and says, Monica's powers make sense. Hex rewrites the era of the matter, past, then present, and now future. Monica and Photon. Ooh, that's interesting, David. I like that. The Hex rewrites the era of the matter, past, then present, and now future. I like that a lot. I think you're onto something there, sir. We'll see. JMeister25 said, I freaking cried when Monica got her powers. Well, JMeister, I thought it was really cool. I did not, in fact, cry. I did cry on my YouTube stream the other day because I read a letter that touched me. I've never cried openly in front of anybody in my entire adult life that wasn't outside of a movie theater, but I did the other day. But yeah, it was still a cool scene. I love seeing that. I love Monica Rambeau now as part of the MCU. It's the coolest thing ever. I love it. JMeister25 says, the spell lines along the book at the end looks like magic conjured using a sling ring. It's orange and focused. It is. Look, I think the color of magic in this show has a lot to say, and I don't quite know what all of it is, but definitely something to watch out for. Iconic Reactions sends in a super chat and says, John, to be honest, I can't help but think you know more than you tell us about the show. With your reach of insiders, I think you know who the engineer is. You know what? I think John would tell me, but maybe he wouldn't. I don't think he knows. We'll see. I don't know. Danilo Lima sends in a super chat and says, the General is Talos' daughter. Nightmare is the villain. Quicksilver is from the Fox universe and being controlled. Nexus connects with the Time Variance Authority in the Loki series, like in the comics. I think, you know what? Is it Danilo or Danilo? I think that you are definitely onto something there. That makes a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of lore there that they have to pack in, but a lot of things to explain. I hope that what I want is a good answer for the show itself. All this stuff that they're setting up is fine, but I want these last 2 episodes to really stick the landing. I think they're going to. DAL sends in a super chat and says, I think Hayward is going to reveal who the aerospace engineer is. He's going to find out the engineer helped Monica and thus telling us who it is. Could be right there. Joshua Reith sends in a super chat and says, a friend of mine said the commercial is a reference to the Nexus, a dimensional bridge between realities. Absolutely, Joshua. The Nexus beings and the Nexus bridge between realities is a big thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Big deal. Arthur Smith sends in a super chat and says, the Wanda guy gets the delivery guy gets a lot of screen time during Monica and Wanda's standoff. Wasn't he also the mailman in the Sparky episode? He's got to be the big bad. That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking whatever it is, it's the mailman. I think it has to be. Timothy Platt says, we still haven't heard Vision's Then Let's Fight For It line from the trailer. I don't think. No, we haven't. So is Vision teaming up with Wanda to fight Agnes or another villain, or teaming up versus Wanda? Again, I don't know. No idea. But I think it's probably Wanda and Vision. They got to get back together at the end, or something's got to happen. And they fight, and then Wanda realizes Vision's been dead the whole time. Something like that. It's going to be sad. JMeister25 says, if Wanda walked through the Hex, she most likely has the powers of the Mind Stone, since the Hex conjured was by Wanda. I'm completely on board. JMeister25, that's interesting. Maybe. Could be. Not sure, but could be. David Langton sends in a super chat and says, hey, John, do you think WandaVision's numbers will feed into Falcon and Winter Soldier? I'm feeling Falcon and Winter Soldier will be top 5 global from the get-go. David, I think absolutely for sure. What we haven't seen a Marvel property in quite some time since the end of Far From Home. Been almost 2 years, year and a half or something, and I think people were starving for the MCU, and now we're going to think about it. 9 episodes that are a half an hour long. I guess if you take the credits, it's almost like we got 3 movies out of this. And then we're going to get Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is more, and it's more action. I mean, I think that they're saving the action for that show. That's why I think WandaVision's so cool and so interesting. It's just so unique and new. But I think it will be top 5 global. I think the MCU is back, baby, in a big way. Nicole23384 sends in a super chat and says, will Doctor Strange come to control the madness, but will it be too late for Wanda? Do you think this will set up Doctor Strange and Wanda will be the villain? I think that's a big possibility. I think it's a big possibility. Scope to Yavu? What a cool name. Book in the Basement is the Book of Cagliostro, stolen by Caecilius and Doctor Strange, allowing Agatha to draw her power from the dark dimension. Ooh. I like that theory. That's a good theory. But to what end? What is the end game here? Although that makes sense. But then again, what's it all for, Alfie? I mean, there's a reference for you. That's a really, really good theory. I like that. I haven't heard that before. You could be onto something. Sorry if I messed up your name. Lincoln23 said, do you think WB is trying to make audiences to lose focus on the Snyder Cut by releasing new content when we're 1 month away from March 18th? No, it's not. Remember, Warner Brothers really doesn't have anything. HBO Max and Warner Brothers Studios are all underneath the Warner Media umbrella. So the people at HBO Max are more interested in what's going on at HBO Max. They're going to have the 1-2 punch of the Snyder Cut and King Kong, and I think, or Godzilla versus King Kong, Godzilla versus Kong, and they're looking to get as many subscribers as possible. The better off HBO Max does, the better off Warner Media does, the better off everybody does. So I don't think they're trying to make audiences lose focus. David Langton sends in a super chat and says, breaking the fourth wall. I was hoping Deadpool or She-Hulk. Ha ha ha. Yes, but again, I think that would have shattered the reality that they've created for the show. I do. HOA Productions sends in a super chat and says, with the post-credit scene, do you think Monica is captured? I think that yes. Yes, I do. I think she's been subdued somehow. Alan McIntosh sends in a super chat and says, I think the engineer hasn't been revealed yet because she said, my guy. And when they got there, I want Richards, but I doubt it can always. I doubt it is. I can always hope, though. Yeah, I mean, I think the engineer is somebody we haven't seen. I think it's going to be a reveal. I do. Something's going on. The Impossible Something sends in a super chat. My fears about people over speculating the identity of the scientist Monica went to meet were confirmed. I was like, who dat? I don't think that that's who she went to meet. That was just the woman that was delivering the vehicle for her. It wasn't like, well, here we are. Let me tell you about the specs. This was a SWORD agent or somebody working for SWORD or whatever. At least that's how I interpreted it. Maybe we'll see something big because she would have said, this is my... this is the aerospace engineer I was talking to you about. Magic Kason says, we might get the real Vision fight against the Hex Vision in the next episode. One of the files Darcy opened requires eye contact, and that might hint real Vision is the solution for this drama's end. Could be. That Impossible Something said, the Vision hitting the boom mic made me spit my drink. It was great. That whole thing was so wild that they're like shooting EPK footage. And who was the person behind the camera talking to them? That was mind-blowing to me as somebody who's usually the guy behind the camera talking to people. It's crazy. Neptune Nick says, I think they wanted to develop Monica's powers now since they probably don't want to squeeze her whole origin into Captain Marvel 2 since Kamala is in it as well. Too much to fit in. Yeah. But I think that's what they've done. They've always introduced other characters, like when they introduced Black Panther in Civil War, and then we like Monica. She's somebody we want to see more of. She's already our friend. And then they bring her into the rest of the MCU. It's a great way to do it. I love when they do that. Eddie Burton sends in a super chat and says, I still think this show didn't need a villain. I felt the dynamic between Wanda and Vision and SWORD trying to take her down was enough. Could be, Eddie, but there's obviously, this is such a cockamamie story. It's like, what the hell is this? The Hex and this and that. Something crazy is going on. So I think the unconventional nature of this story is what has made it fun. Cal Roma sends in a super chat and says, John, Dominic Toretto can break through the hex with ease, right? No, but Han can. WCF Grey Wolf sends in a super chat and says, guys, they just used the word mutant while referring to the X-Men in the Disney Plus movie Flora and Ulysses. Is that true? Well, there you go. I don't know if that means anything, though. Keith Gilmore sends in a super chat and says, John, love the WandaVision coverage. I think the theory of Agatha finding refuge in the Hex once Wanda created it has some merit. I do too. Totally do. What chance do you think that we'll see Mordo now after the events of Episode 7? You know, Mordo could show up because obviously there's a lot of magic flying around, unless they're saving Mordo, or although Mordo and Doctor Strange, who's to say the last episode isn't a total blowout leading into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? That could absolutely happen. And maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe, you know, Spider-Man takes place afterwards, but it's Doctor Strange that takes place right after WandaVision. Who knows? Who knows? Hayden Jeffries says, lack of vision in the intro video significant? Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're meant to think that, you know, Vision was basically dead in the last episode, so I think they had to start it that way. I think. JB Tuck 82 sends in a super chat and says, why hasn't anyone mentioned Nick Fury as the cameo? Has Paul Bettany acted with Sam Jackson before? Ooh, that's a good question. That could be. Nick Fury showing up could be really, really cool. I could see that. The Iceman 101418 or 101418 sends in a super chat and says, overall good episode. Worried about direction Wanda is going in. I don't want her to be okay or the issue resolved. I want the end to be tragic and Wanda broken. Well, geez, Iceman. I think, though, that you're right. I don't want it to be happy either. I don't think this is going to be a happy ending for anybody. Ian Lewis sends in a super chat, says, Episode 9, Postman, it's all me. Look, man, I think something's going on with that guy. I really do. Something is going on with that guy. James Shimo sends in a super chat and says, I need a meme of Agatha on Vince McMahon's body during the higher power reveal with the caption, it's me, Wanda. It was me all along, Wanda. Vince McMahon is in the air and everywhere. Peter Vincent Quitulio sends in, what a cool name, Peter Vincent Quitulio. I love that. You know, Peter Vincent, I wonder if that's a reference. Is that your real name, or is that a reference to Fright Night? You have to have faith for this to work on me, Mr. Vincent. And that would be the original Fright Night from 1985. I know that's random. I need an Agnes Darcy showdown. Oh, we all do. I'm there for that. Josie Reviews sends in a super chat and says, so did the dog see something he shouldn't have, or did Agatha just say the dog has to sleep? I think Agatha killed the dog to up the emotional ante, and also to put Wanda in her place, because the kid's like, bring Sparky back, and she can't. She can't. So I think she did it to wreak havoc. But man, once you kill a dog, you're out. You're out of the family, Tom. And I think that that made her even worse. And when she admits this in her little song, I want to see, Agatha gone. Just wing it, but she's not going to go away. I think she's being injected into the MCU for the long haul. Just Wing It sent in a super chat and says, just found you 2 months ago. Love your content. I agree we've yet to see The Engineer. I think the book is the big tie-in to Doctor Strange 2 and the Nexus. Like the book that Caecilius was using, I like that. I think that could be amazing. I think you're right, though. By the way, welcome to Fantasy Island, which is the John Campea Show. So thanks for coming and joining the party. Mr. 47 sends in a super chat and says, who did you assume Wanda was talking to when she said, you're not supposed to talk? I don't know. And as a DVD special features producer, or Blu-ray special features producer, I'm usually the one sitting the celebrities down and doing the interviews. It was crazy to me. I'm like, who was that? That was amazing. I have no idea what was going on there. We did see Agatha behind the camera in her little song reveal, but I don't know, man. I love that. I don't know what's going on there. So Mr. 47, no idea. Peter Vincent Quitulio's back. Agatha Harkness spin-off sitcom, anyone? I'm in. I would watch that show. Catherine Hahn, yes. Zach93 says, won't Wanda go anti-hero? Agatha is her mind's creation. Could very well be. This whole thing could be an elaborate Fight Club-esque kind of a deal. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me because she's around the bend crazy. Yes, I could see that. I think you might be right. Dennis Williams says, 1 or 2, I think Agatha tricked Wanda to make the hex. Any magic used in the hex is absorbed to charge the book, and Agatha is in the background causing problems and drama, so Wanda has to use more magic to fix it, charging the book faster. Your thoughts, Dennis? Good theory. I like that idea that's Agatha had to supercharge this magical book for whatever purpose, or if it's Mephisto or Nightmare or whomever, that's what this whole thing is. It's a battery for that book. I think that's a really good theory. Peter Vincent Catulio sends in a super chat. Keanu Reeves as the devil, not Pacino, is the WandaVision big reveal. How great would that be? I mean, wouldn't that be hilarious? It turns out that John Wick is the devil. Baba Yaga my ass. He's right here. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think why not? That would be, people would love that. People would freak out. Freak out. I would freak out. Joshua Rivera sends in a super chat and says, maybe the engineer is Talos' daughter and we actually see who she was when she met up with her to get the vehicle. Maybe. Could be. I just don't know if they're going to bring Skrulls into this yet, although they could. There's a lot of Captain Marvel talk. Maybe. Ian Lewis sends in a super chat and says, the show ends with Photon being under the witch's spell, pushing Captain Marvel 2 as the ultimate fight, a rogue appearance to kill Carol. You know what? I don't think so. I think this is the beginning of a 3-movie or a three, it's going to be WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange 2. I don't think necessarily the Skrulls are going to be new. They're getting the Secret Invasion after all, so we'll see. Empire Fan 1980 says, I know off topic, but I was going to watch a Marvel marathon. I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't canon in this MCU, but what about Agent Carter? I really liked Agent Carter. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have the production values of like a WandaVision, but I thought it was a respectable show. I like Peggy Carter. I think it was good. I liked it. Watch it. Check it out. Mike Farino sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you so much, Mike, for supporting the channel like that. Very much appreciate it. What Agatha showed made it appear she didn't cast the spell on Quicksilver until he was at the door, not before. Ooh. A very good observation. I think you're right about that. That's why, I mean, maybe Pietro's been, or Peter's been under control the whole time, and maybe it really is the Quicksilver, but that's a really good observation, Mike. I have to go back. See, again, it's one of those things now I want to go back and watch it. I think you might be right about that. Captain Kirk 1978 says, damn it, John, it's all in the details. The Major told Monica if the space car was to her specification, the glitch was probably occurring at the same time that Monica was trying to get into the hex. That could be. I mean, that's a good observation. That could be. Again, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get those kinds of details yet, because I think, we actually saw what happened, so she was able to get through. I think it really had to do with her latent power in some way. I think so. Frankie Gouge says, speaking of Nick Scratch and Scratchy, has Pietro and the rabbit, have we seen, somebody said that earlier, have we seen Pietro and the rabbit at the same time? I don't think that we have. So I think, and she's carrying it around and petting it. I think there's something to that. Ruski9110 sends in a super chat and says, do you think the show could end on a cliffhanger leading into Doctor Strange 2? Also, love how unreliable narrators are used on the show. I love that. I think this is going to end on a cliffhanger. I think the story of the Hex is going to be finished, but I do think it's going to end on a big cliffhanger that leads us places. Who knows where they're going to lead us, but it's definitely going to be a big cliffhanger. Paths Unwritten sends in a super chat and says, how many times can the MCU use hiding in plain sight trope? Wanda, wizards, Inhumans, TV, I know. Now vampires, yuck, Eternals, and possibly mutants. Well, it's a big part of our own world. People are hiding hiding in plain sight all the time. So I think that's how if you think about it, all superheroes and their secret identities are always hiding in plain sight. So it's kind of a trope of the superhero genre, really. Peter Vincent Quitulio, Peter Vincent Quitulio. Let me get that right. Quitulio. Aerospace engineer is Scott Lang. Could be. Could be. I don't know. Maybe. Hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. I just don't know how would Ant-Man fit into all this. It's got to be somebody that has some kind of connection to what's going on. A big connection. Louis Osio says people in Westview aren't under Wanda's control. None of their eyes are red. When Wanda controlled Hayward's dogs, their eyes turned red. Could be, or it's an overall spell of some kind. They're under some kind of spell. But they still have their own, they can still act. Something's going on. Again, we're going to find out, I think, in this 8th episode. Chris Nichols says, a soul must be given to gain the soul stone. Wanda gave a soul to destroy the soul stone. Could Pietro's soul have been the repayment? Could be. I don't know. Again, I don't know. That's a big assumption. I don't know. I like that idea, though. Ismael Montoya says, in post-credit scenes, Monica's eyes turn purple. The hex? Well, it's clearly Agatha is doing something to her. So, yeah. Manny Garcia says, Monica got her powers. Yes, she did. Natasha Scott sends in a super chat and says, they just told us that Agatha is the director, so who could be the producer? Everything is set up as Nightmare, but imagine Bobby De Niro as Mephisto in the big reveal, which can only be in episode 9. I think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be somebody like that. You know, Paul Bettany said he admires Brando, Pacino, and De Niro. And what if it is? What if it's De Niro playing Mephisto? He's coming back like Louis Safier from Angel Heart. But I'd like to think Al Pacino is a better fit because he was the devil in The Devil's Advocate. I'm a fan of man. I'm a humanist. We'll see. Also, a movie that has Keanu Reeves in it, who played John Constantine. So neither one of those boys is a stranger to the mystical energies of the universe. Jared Triano says, Wanda made a deal with Mephisto for her ideal life. Demons be demons, and Mephisto sent Agatha to mess with Wanda's mind and collect his debt, the kids. Ooh, I like that. That's really good. I think that's really good. That's really good. I like that a lot. Carl Stevens sends in a super chat and says, I think everyone is overthinking it. I agree. What's happening in Westview is opening a Nexus point. The end of WandaVision will lead to the multiverse potentially collapsing, which leads to Doctor Strange 2. Carl, I think that's a very good observation. They're opening a Nexus point. I think that is definitely something that's part of this. We'll see where that goes, but I agree with you. Bulldozer MHK sends in a super chat and says, I love the different eras of the TV conceit, but I think we've overlooked a bigger influence, Lost. With every episode, answer a question and give them 3 more. It's true, but the MCU's got to give us answers because they have to move forward and build that bigger story out. And I think that's what they're doing. But yeah, I think they know where they're going. I think we're going to get a lot of questions answered in the next episode and in episode 9. Mamander33 sends in a super chat and says, what if the engineer is Blue Marvel? And what if he's being played by Denzel Washington? I know it's overthinking, but it would be awesome. Hey, man, if Denzel Washington shows up in this show, I love Denzel Washington. That would be indeed awesome. JMeister25 sends in a super chat and says, real talk. Which is more popular right now, regardless of previous popularity? Star Wars or Marvel? More people have talked to me about Marvel. I think they're both incredibly popular. I think, look, Star Wars is an older franchise, and Marvel is newer. So I think people have grown up a lot. Like, look, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, and I grew up with Star Wars. Star Wars is now 44 years old. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is only 13 years old this year. So a lot of younger people with more energy than I have are buzzing about Marvel because it's their franchise, as opposed to Star Wars, which is my franchise. So I think Marvel's been delivering the goods more so than Star Wars. Sure, we got The Mandalorian, which is great, but the Skywalker saga, I think the Disney sequel movies really overall turned out to be kind of a dud. And whereas this show, the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't. You know, what we were expecting from the sequel trilogy was what Endgame, what Infinity War and Endgame gave us. So, yeah. Ackle P sends in a super chat and says, I think Agnes is a fan of American Horror Story and brought Evan Peters' character out of the series and used him in place of Aaron Tyler Johnson. In the post-credits, Evan's makeup is similar to that of American Horror Story. That's actually kind of funny. I could see somebody on the show thinking that, but clearly we know it's the Quicksilver connection. We know it is. It's like the Rainbow Connection, but different. And now that Disney has Muppets, Risk It for the Biscuit sends in a super chat and says, one of two. Could Blade Mahershala Ali show up and be the person Paul Bettany said he was excited to work with? He's a 2-time Oscar winner. I don't know, but I wouldn't mind that. That'd be pretty badass. Although, again, would they introduce Blade now? So many questions. A Daywalker? Suddenly, now there's vampires. But you know what? With this show, why not? Risk It for the Biscuit sent in a $5 super chat and said, or pardon me. Hang on. One of two. Let me go back. Let me say it. Risk It. Let me do that again. Could Blade Mahershala Ali show up and be the person Paul Bettany said he was excited to work with? He's a 2-time Oscar winner. I wondered how supernatural things would fit into the MCU. The Darkhold could be the key. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that that's what this is also doing. It's setting up the supernatural in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we haven't seen, and this is the way to do it. So this is serving many masters, WandaVision, and I think it's working. You're absolutely right, though. I don't know if we're going to see Blade, but it's definitely opening the door to that area of the Marvel. It's like lands in Disneyland. You know, there's Frontierland, there's New Orleans Square, there's Tomorrowland, there's Fantasyland, and now we're opening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe Supernatural Land, which they needed to open. We kind of got it with Doctor Strange, with things like Dormammu, but now we're getting it in a big way. CLG Comics sends in a super chat and says, Feige stated that he'll set up Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Peter's real and pulled from the multiverse. Others will follow. Could very well be, but I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to want to develop these characters within the MCU from scratch, but we'll see. Eric Del Muro sends in a super chat and says, excuse me, I love Catherine Hahn's facial expressions. She's hilarious without even saying anything. Such a gifted actress. And the performance she's given has been delightful the whole time. I'm totally with you, Eric. Empire Fan 1980 sends in a super chat and says, I never watch Modern Family now. I'm curious about it. I hope it comes to Disney Plus soon. Oh, you'll like Modern Family. The cast is amazing. It's a fun show. It is a fun show. So you'll like it. Esme Weavers sends in a super chat and says, if the full show runtime was supposedly around 6 hours, not sure if that was ever confirmed, should we expect the last 2 episodes to be longer? I think we can. We must, because there's so much story to get to. So how can they end it with these half-an-hour episodes? There's so much going on. So much going on. Donald A. sends in a super chat and says, I just finished the episode, and I think I scared my neighbor when I jumped and yelled, holy shit, when Agnes introduced herself. You know, when people call in and tell us this or write in and tell us this, I want to see reaction videos like this. You know, I want to see people watching these shows and jumping up with the revelations. Maybe that's what people can do this for the last 2 episodes. It's just film their reactions to whatever happens. I'd love to see that. JMeister25 sends in a super chat and says, the difference of subverting expectations with The Last Jedi versus WandaVision is that Marvel is satisfying character beats while The Last Jedi is betraying them. JMeister25, 100%. You know, because the real difference, too, is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a long-term plan. They're working through a long-term plan, and it's working, and that's why it's so good. Chris Jackson says, I still believe Reed is the engineer. I feel it would be perfect. Here's why. Agatha's first appearance ever was in a Fantastic Four comic. Could be right. We shall see. Antoine Fair sends in a super chat and says, people getting mad they can't figure out a show equals good show. Yes, Antoine, you are absolutely right. 100%. Kevin Ryan sent, and when was the last time you heard people speculating so much about a TV show? Crazy. Kevin Ryan sent in $5 super chat and says, I want to tell you guys that, but I know the reaction is going to be the look on Tasha's face. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys, but I know the reaction was going to be the look on Tasha's face. That must be something I'm missing, Kevin. Tasha Yar from Star Trek The Next Generation. Natasha's face. Was that you're talking about, Natasha? I don't know. I apologize for that. George Kofos sends in a super chat and says, could the Nexus refer to the internet hub in Oslo referenced in Age of Ultron? It's already established in the MCU. It could. It could have something to do with that. Absolutely. Again, we don't know. Brad Timp 31 sends in a super chat and says, did you notice that each of their powers manifests a different color of eyes? Wanda's turn red, reality, Agatha purple, power, and Monica blue, energy. Yes, I think that is a very astute observation. 100%, you are correct. Kevin Ryan sends in a super chat and says, and your spare time, you guys should check out Alice in Borderlands on Netflix. I watched Alice in Borderland. For those of you who don't know, it is a Japanese television show that is based on a manga. And yes, if you like WandaVision, Kevin is quite right. You need to check out Alice in Borderland. It's crazy, too, in a very good way. I really liked Alice in Borderland a lot. If you are looking for a new show to watch, definitely something to check out. Owen Road sent in a super chat and says, do you have a favorite comic run that you've read? My personal favorite is Bendis' Daredevil run. Oh my God, do I have a favorite? I have 100 million. Runs on the X-Men, Frank Miller on Daredevil, Bendis on Daredevil. I'm surrounded by so many comic book runs. I love the original Watchmen. But in terms of comic book runs, one of my favorite comic runs is it's the Wolfman and Perez New Teen Titans. I love the New Teen Titans, but that goes back 40 years because that's how old I am. But I have many. American Flag is another favorite comic of mine. The Sandman, Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, is my favorite comic series of all time. Ale West says, Ale West 86895 says, I think Paul Bettany is talking about Baron Mordo. That, you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if Mordo shows up here. It really wouldn't because of the mystical energies flying around. Izzy says, I have a theory that Agatha could have posed as a therapist for Wanda before the Hex. That to me is a good way to influence her mind. I've heard that before, and I think that we're going to see that because the next episode's got to explain how this all started. I think we're going to see that. Ojman 654 says, I don't think the twins are stuck in a music video because that clip is from an existing show called Yo Gabba Gabba. Yeah, it is. I don't think they're there either. I don't think. But what are they doing there? Weren't they a little old for Yo Gabba Gabba? I don't know. Maybe that's what Agnes put on. Empire Fan 1980 sends in a super chat and says, I wonder if the Hulu girl in the van is a nod to Coulson in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He had a Hulu girl. Ooh, good catch. Could be. Could be. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. Ojman654 sends in a super chat and says, this is the first episode that I had to watch the next day. I got my COVID shot and wasn't feeling too hot. Well, I'm glad you're vaccinated, so you'll survive to see the end of WandaVision, which is good. John Ashford sent in a super chat and says, what if the kid in the milk carton is Haywood's son? He sent Wu to check the town out for this reason? Then it would have to be... I don't think so. I don't think it's Hayward's son. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I don't know. Ojaman654 says, did you hear the Captain Marvel quotes? Were there Captain Marvel quotes from her? I don't know exactly where that might have been. I did not hear them, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. Clearly you did, and there's no reason to think that you don't know more than I do, which could frequently be the case. And on that note, I have reached the end of my questions. Whoosh, another long one. I want to thank everybody for joining me on this journey. I love answering your questions. I have so much fun. I want to thank John and Ann Campea for making these things possible. I love doing the John Campea Show. I love being a part of John's team. It's most excellent. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me at BurnettRM on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram under my name, Robert Meyer Burnett, or mosey on over to my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and find my show, Robservations, among many other things on my channel. Once again, thanks to you, all of you viewers, for supporting the John Campea Show the way you do. This kind of fan involvement just warms all of our hearts over here, and it's so much fun. It's so great to have our international group of friends that interact with the show in this way. Really, really an honor to be serving all of you with great YouTube content. Thank you all very, very much. And How stoked. How many hours is it till the next WandaVision?